Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Start Your Systems. Welcome back to MX Bikes, and today I want to formally welcome Transcend to doing content here on MX Bikes. That is right, you guys maybe know him as Transcend SP or Transcend MXB. Either way, he's a fantastic content creator and is very good at MX Bikes in third person. He's going to take over doing quite a few of our track reviews in MX Bike because I think he's very good at the game. He also speaks very well. I will still do some of them, but I think Transcend does an excellent job, and he is going to do a fantastic job letting you guys see this track here today. So without further ado, take it away, Transcend.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Transcend here, and thank you for joining me in the first installment of the Start Your Systems track review for MX Bikes. Today, we are going to be going over the track Blue SX Test Track 2025 by JV. This track is available on the MX Bike shop for $1, and the beauty of this track, other than its actual beauty, is the fact that you actually get 2 tracks for the price of 1. To give you a little breakdown here, these tracks are based off of the Yamaha test tracks in Southern California in real life, and these are actually similar to the big track pack that JV released a little over a year ago. I think he had like 6 or 7 tracks, and they were all bangers, and they were absolutely stunning, and honestly are still used for a lot of photo shoots in MX Bikes. I mean, to this day. I know I use them, a lot of my teammates on Norms use them, so they were hits, and these tracks are no different. As you can see, the textures on this track are amazing, and they're just very visually appealing. So you can see the tractor marks and the prep lines. You know, you can even see that the tractor went up and down, back and forth to prep the berms. And yeah, he just did a great job with the detail-oriented textures on the track, and that really shows. And of course, you can't go wrong with the SoCal mountain backdrop, which is great eye catcher for photos and adds a great ambiance to the track. So without further ado, let's hop into spinning some laps. All right, guys, so for the laps today, we are going to be ripping on the YZ450F. Something about the YZ since that latest OEM update a few weeks ago before A1 just feels right, man. It is solid in the corners, it turns really well, and it feels just a little bit stickier than the rest of the bikes to me. Like that rear wheel just doesn't like slide out as easy as it does on the KTM and the other bikes I've tried. So big fan of the Yami. Now, on this track here, I feel like JV has made the rhythm sections very peaky, and they're honestly really technical too. So if you're newer to the game and maybe not familiar with Supercross, these tracks might not be the ones for you. Like I said, they're very hard. It took me probably 30 minutes to get my bearings and be able to run consistent laps on this track. And while I'm not the best player, I will say that, you know, I can run some fast times on the ARL tracks too and the pro tracks. So yeah, this track's very technical, and it's tough to spin consistent laps on, especially if you're a new player. So I would say this is expert track recommended. So if you have experience with Supercross and maybe feel like you're up for a challenge, then this would be a good track for you to check out and practice your timing, practice your technique, like the sit-stand technique for scrubbing and for, you know, kind of raising the bike up for landings. Like right here in this rhythm section, a lot of times if you're trying to triple through it, the landings are actually taller than the faces are. So being able to sit to seat bounce and then stand up in the air and then sit again to raise your bike up so that it catches the downside of those steep landings. Definitely this track is great for practicing that. Maybe even great for practicing your 12 o'clocks as well, as I just greatly pointed out there. But overall, yeah, it's definitely interesting. The rhythms are very tight together as well. So timing, super important in the rhythm sections. It's very easy to over jump one of the jumps in the middle of the rhythm section, and then it just kind of messes up, you know, your entire rhythm and your entire lap. So funny enough, this track, being how tight together the rhythm sections are, I would say this track is actually the more spaced out track of the two. So kind of here in a comparison photo, you can see SX Track B is actually a little bit smaller than SX Track A, which we're riding right now. However, even though this track is pretty difficult, once you do get your bearings on it and you get a flow going, it is very fun to spin laps on. With the jumps being so steep and the faces and the downsides being so steep, once you're clearing everything perfect and hitting your marks on everything, it becomes super satisfying to spin laps on. So while it is challenging, it's also rewarding. And I think it's this lap that I actually hit this massive quad. That's another thing about this track too, is the different line choices that you can have. So for instance, in this section coming up after this big sweeper, you can square it up and just seat bounce it perfect where you can get a quad in the middle, and it is just absolutely massive. You got to stretch it out so far, and it's very hard to hit. I definitely spent way too much time making my lap video trying to hit that quad. So there's plenty of challenges, plenty of things to strive for, and plenty of, rewarding aspects of this track too whenever you do get it down. So I think it's very fun, and yeah, let's go ahead and move on to SX Track B. All right, so right off the rip, first thing you notice obviously is the dirt color. This track has more of a sandy vibe to it. The texture is not sandy, obviously. It's still the normal, whatever mid-compound, normal, dry dirt texture it is. So there's no change. It's not like it feels like you're riding on sand or anything. More just for the vibes. As I said earlier too, this track is the more smaller, tight-knit track. You can see, I feel like a lot of the lanes in this track are like, touching one another, whereas in the other track, they were a little bit spaced out. This track, it seems like they tried to put just as much track in a much smaller space. So you can kind of feel that in most of the jumps. Like, yeah, there's some big hucks here, and there's a couple quads on this track, but I feel like the jumps themselves don't throw you near as high, and it's just a little bit more, I want to say, forgiving, because you can come up short on things, and it's not like you're going so fast on this track that it's gonna make you do a backflip like what you saw on the previous track. So while the jumps are more forgiving, these whoops, on the other hand, I don't think are. They're obviously a lot longer than the set on the other track and are quite challenging. For some reason, I can't seem to perfectly every lap keep my front wheel on top of the whoops, so they're definitely tough. And while they might not be practice, or they might not be good practice for the feeling of staying on top of whoops and getting them just that buttery perfect run, I think it would be good practice if you need help on, like, when you get sketchy in whoops and you need to figure out how to kind of manipulate your way out of it so that you survive and don't wad your brains out and crash. Other than that, I mean, the textures on this track are just as beautiful as the textures on the last track, what I was talking about earlier. And I like, too, that this track kind of has a separation. It has the ability for you to hit maybe some more easier, not so high-speed lines, and it also has the ability for you to just absolutely send it and hit massive hucks. So I think there's a good balance there on these tracks, and I think JV killed it on these tracks. And while the style of these Supercross tracks might not be for everyone, I know that, I think Supercross tracks in general are the most debatable and more opinionated tracks in the game. I feel like, especially like the ARL tracks, even just the poll that we were having for ruts versus no ruts for all of the pro races this year, a lot of people have different opinions on what the Supercross tracks in this game should be. But I think without fail, JV usually hits the nail on the head, at least for good practice Supercross tracks. They're great for getting better, practicing the art of riding a Supercross track in this game. And yeah, anytime JV comes out with a Supercross track, you can put money on the fact that I will be getting it, because they are super fun to spin laps on. Thank you guys for joining me on this first track review for the Start Your Systems channel. As a reminder, if you want to snag this track or these tracks for yourself, they are available in a pack, 2025 SX Blue Test Track, on the MX Bike shop, and they are available for $1, so not too much dent in the bank for you. And yeah, if you're looking to get better at Supercross, then these are going to be a good purchase for you. And last but not least, if you are interested in some more MX Bikes content, feel free to also hop over to my personal channel. It's Transcend_SP, and I post some content on race reviews, crash compilations, maybe a few track reviews here and there. But for the most part, I like to do the racing, and I like to kind of make some summary videos for it. So if that interests you, feel free to also check out my YouTube channel as well.